But you knew that.
Right.
I mean, Katrina showed you that. And in the article, doesn't it name the same company
Right.
that did not give the people of Katrina what
Absolutely.
they needed as the company that got the contract for this hospital?
It certainly does.
Yeah, the connective tissue is obvious, I think. Yeah.
You're so right. And I mean, it just goes to show, it's just like you were saying, there's a history where this country is concerned in its treatment of soldiers, especially when they're black and they're brown, which the military is largely comprised of. And so I think that we would be doing a disservice to our young people, to those young men and women who are coming of military age, if we didn't let them know, just exactly what they're getting into and the true history of this country in regards to soldiers, in regards to how the soldiers are taken care of or not taken care of when they get back to this country after they've been wounded or maimed or however you want to put it in service to this country.
It's true. It's
Did you have any other final thoughts before we move on to the next piece?
Not really. I just, again, none of it was surprising to me. Walter Reed Army Medical Centers plagued with rats and roaches, so are the projects. I mean, poor health care at Walter Reed, no health care in black and brown communities. It's not that deep for us, because for us, this is a mirror reflection of what we have to contend with all the time.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Now, the next piece we want to deal with is, of course, very near and dear to my heart because it's dealing with, it appears on actually page 3, and it's an article that references the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's return to Mas Mariam after nearly 6 months that he's been absent, undergoing treatment from side effects from cancer that he had some years ago. Now, you happened to be at the lecture, which was a couple of weeks ago. About like a week and a half ago. Week and a half. Not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before that. What were your impressions of Minister Farrakhan?
I mean, first, I guess the thing that's most prolific about his speech for me was the fact that he made it.
Right.
That he's still stepping toward podiums with more offerings. That was profound to me. In addition to that, the minister continues to do the arduous work of standing as an example of what free can look like.
Right.
And if one only dare to reclaim their rights to freedom, they have a model in him for that. So he's prolific in that for me. And I've always admired him for that. So that was the big thing that I came away with was just a real feeling of gratitude that he is continuing to do this work.
Right. And whenever I see him, stand up and like you said, just selflessly give of himself. And, realizing that, Minister Farrakhan's been doing this since 1955, longer than a lot of us have even been alive, longer than a lot of our parents have been alive. And it just seems like even though he's approaching 74 years young, it seems like every time he gets up, it's like he's getting younger right before our eyes. And so it was just a beautiful thing, in my view, just to see him. Now, one of the things that the minister talked about during his address, which was really profound because the lecture was just really heavy in its content, extremely spiritual, not religious, but spiritual.
Yeah.
Was he talked about, he made reference to the earth casting off its burden. And he was just talking about some of the things that plague America. What were your thoughts on, just that reference?
It makes sense. The idea of the earth casting off its burdens. I mean, in the natural world, that is the adequate and appropriate response when the environment has to sustain injury because of someone or something coming onto it and misappropriating it. that's an appropriate response to cast it off. We have misused our natural resources. We have.
Right.
We've neglected them, or we've overused them, or we've abused them. They've responded to us by being unfamiliar to us. So now we're so disconnected from them, we don't even recognize how abusive we're being.
Right.
And the earth has no choice but to respond. I do think of earth as the mother. And mothers, again, even in the natural world, you know, there was just an article about this polar bear or whatever that had these cubs, and one of them has some defect, and she left it. And that sounds cruel, and zookeepers quickly went to try to rescue this cub. But again, in the natural world, she has to think about sustainability.
Right.
And this one cub was not going to be that. And so she had to cast it off. So it makes sense.
Right.
It made perfect sense to me.
That was just a beautiful reference. Now, I want to read something from this article. And this appears on page 3, like I said, and this is like the last paragraph, and I'm just reading and just get your thoughts. It says, Minister Farrakhan began his subject matter by going into why the 192 nations on earth that have separate systems of government and separate flags are not what Jesus Christ nor Prophet Muhammad desired for the people. Both men desired to see the boundaries which separated human beings abolished so that there was only one nation under God. He then addressed, and this is key, how those who are being maligned as illegal aliens as if they were from some other planet could never be considered aliens. For if one dies in any part of the earth will,
Bear up their remains.
Exactly. The earth will receive their remains because the earth belongs to those who become the righteous. Heavy when you think about how illegal immigration is so prevalent, or so it's such a hot issue, especially with white folks. You listen to talk radio, and I can say white folks, this is cable TV.
Well, that's a smokescreen. That illegal alien thing is a smokescreen. How are they illegal? They're crossing a border that should never exist to re-enter a land that was theirs to begin with. Right. So I'm confused about how they're illegal. Right. If they're illegal, what does that make us? They were here first, got pushed off. Right. So I'm confused about that, you know.
It just speaks to the arrogance of the, them people.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
now,
does.
Another piece that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talked about that stood out in my mind that was very key was he started talking about the Illuminati. And Illuminati, of course, is this so-called secret organization that was founded in the 18th century, and how they create systems. You know, we were talking about systems a little bit earlier. So again, I mean, what is it, if anything, that the minister revealed of the Illuminati that you can see, in the current educational system as your role as an educator?
Well, I recognize that education is a conduit for change.
Right.
I also recognize that mainstream education is the same thing as miseducation. And so that has a profound effect on American systems because the intent was to mass produce ignorance, and that's what it does, and that's what it has always done. You don't want people who are thinking freely. You don't want people who are discerning, people who are able to read between the lines, sort out fact from fiction. If you create a smokescreen and they're fooled by it, that benefits you, so that's the goal. And that's education's goal. I'm going to force feed you what to think, which in that respect, we shouldn't even call it education, because to educate someone is to educe, to pull out. Right? So we're putting in. We're telling you what to think, what to believe, how to feel, what to know, and what not to know. So I acknowledge all of that. For me, education has always been about counterintelligence. It's been about It's the tradition of my grandmother who was teaching in those one-room schoolhouses in a segregated South where a